I don't have much to say here, so let's just jump right into the comic. Johnny returns to the Baxter building after searching for Dr. Doom to no avail. The FF then decide to look through some fan mail. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. Including Reed stretching to the hospital to answer a sick kid's question, and the first mention of the Yancey Street Gang, a big part of Ben's backstory. They say their suits are made of unstable molecules. It's kind of a Stan Lee-ism to just explain these weird things that happen with scientific-sounding jargon that sounds half plausible enough. Unstable molecules seem to have been a favorite. Dr. Doom meets with Namor in the ocean and reignites his hatred for the surface, starting with the FF. Namor agrees but wants to lay off Sue. Doom agrees and shows off his latest invention, a device that can lift anything, no matter how big or heavy, with magnets, calling it the Grabber. Johnny finds a picture of Namor belonging to Sue, which starts a little fight before the real Namor shows up. The guys immediately start fighting Namor in vain as Sue wants to hear him out. Namor tries to leave the building with Sue, but Doom doesn't wait and lifts the entire Baxter building into space. I don't really have any jokes to make, this is just a really cool panel. The four try to stop Doom, but space hinders their powers. Namor then tries successfully and stops Doom, kicking him out onto a meteor, returning the Baxter building to its original spot, and crashing the ship and his technology into the ocean where it can't harm anyone. This is the first villain team-up comic, and a really good one overall. I like how it shows how ruthless Doom is, as opposed to Namor, who can be a good guy if there's a greater bad guy to fight. There's also some really good cinematic panels. Also, all those regular people in the Baxter building without, helmets and stuff are definitely dead, right? An alien named Kurgo has been watching the FF, believing they're the only ones who can save his planet from destruction. They don't care much for space travel, and so only have 2 spaceships on the whole planet. Meanwhile, the FF are invited to a government dinner, but most of them are nervous and imagine everything going wrong. Ben plays a prank on Johnny in the shower, causing him to flame on, causing a bunch of steam in a vain attempt to stop the dinner. The aliens finally get to Earth as the FF are at the dinner, and Kurgo uses a hostility ray which makes everyone hate the Fantastic Four. And I do mean everyone. They meet with Kurgo's robot, who convinces them to come to their planet to help, to which they begrudgingly agree. They get to their planet, and let's just admire how beautiful this panel is for a beat. Reed fashions a shrink gas to shrink all the people on the planet so they can all fit into a single spaceship, and a regrowth one which he trusts to Kurgo. Kurgo plans to hold off the growth gas on all but himself to make himself giant and the ruler of his species. The planet crumbles as Kurgo trips and misses the spaceship, which leaves him behind along with the growth gas canister. The FF get away in the other spaceship, where Reed admits there never was a growth gas and he lied and they're forever shrunk. Reed justifies this by saying that size is relative in the grand scheme of the universe, so it didn't really matter anyway. Damn, Reed. This is actually the comic when I really started to find myself to get hooked and couldn't wait for the next one. Ben walks in on Reed, who is working on a formula to turn Ben human again, but wants to keep it a surprise and makes the others keep it a secret. Ben thinks they're keeping secrets from him because they don't really care about him, leading to a fight and him running off. Sue catches up to Ben to bring him back, but he's too ticked off. After messing with some civilians who kinda asked for it by messing with them first, they see a man on top of the Queensboro Bridge who's caught in a trance. And under the Queensboro Bridge was Adam Egget earning $15. Little Norm reference for you there. After signaling the team, the man is saved by Johnny. It's then revealed that the source of the trance was the Puppet Master, who vows revenge on the FF, starting with making a voodoo doll of the Thing out of radioactive clay. We also meet Alicia Masters in her first ever appearance as the Puppet Master's blind stepdaughter. The Thing is forced to come along with Sue in tow, who Alicia instantly recognizes there by her heartbeat. I guess Alicia is Daredevil. Actually, I'm not going to give Marvel any more ideas for gender swaps. They knock her out with gas and dress up Alicia as Sue and lead the rest of the four into a trap. Thing fights them and gets knocked on the chemicals, temporarily turning into a human and immediately back, much to the chagrin of Alicia, who likes him better this way. Sue signals them to the Puppet Master's hideout, where they fight a robot and the Puppet Master escapes. They then realize the Puppet Master started a prison riot by forcing the warden to set them free. They stop the riot, but the Puppet Master has other plans as he's created a puppet of himself as king of the world. Alicia knocks the puppet to the floor, which then sends the real-life Puppet Master out the window. I like this comic, despite the fact that the Puppet Master is so creepy it'd make the Crypt Keeper have to sleep with the light on. I like how they set up the beginning with Ben not feeling appreciated as a person in his own right, only then to introduce Alicia, who likes him and sees the gentle soul underneath the hard exterior. Pun intended. The FF face their greatest foe to date, Bankruptcy. Yeah, they're selling everything off, and Reed gets his own George Bailey moment.
I don't have your money here. It's in Bill's house and Fred's house.
Hey, what the hell you doing with my money in your house, Fred? Ugh.
Ben runs off, and after a slight overreaction where he impales a taxi on a lamppost, he goes to Alicia. Alicia reminds him that he's a good person who stands by his friends, and Ben returns just in time for the FF to get the solution to their money troubles. Someone wants to make a movie of them. They arrive and find out it's none other than Namor, who has sold Undersea Treasure to buy a movie studio to help them out. Sue goes gaga over Namor as he escorts the FF to their scenes that are actually just death traps. Reed is forced to fight a Cyclops who he beats with his stretch powers. Johnny fights an African tribe who are impervious to fire and capture him, only for him to escape, reignite a nearby volcano, and defeat the tribe. For Ben, Namor decides to fight him himself. He has the upper hand for a bit before Ben realizes he's more powerful in water than land and fights him on the beach. Ben's got him on the ropes until he's miraculously struck by lightning, turning him back into a human, and Namor easily wins. Namor goes to tell Sue the good news, to which Sue is not as receptive as Namor hopes, and they get into a fight. The rest of the FF show up alive, but Sue stops them before they can attack the guy that just tried to kill them, because it'd be unfair to gang up on him. Namor lives up to his end of the bargain and actually makes the movie. Sue defends his actions because he did it for love. Ugh. I wasn't lying in my last video when I said I don't really like love triangles, but other than that, this was a good one. Even though I made some fun, it wasn't common to have superheroes actually go through financial troubles like this, even if it gets wrapped up by the end of the issue. The character stuff with Ben and Alicia was endearing, and the action was cool. Standout being Reed and the Cyclops, where he uses his powers in a way he really hadn't until now. Besides the bonkers plot, good stuff. Reed, Sue, and Johnny are hanging out at the Baxter Building experimenting when suddenly they get hailed by Flare by Ben. They show up after some trouble with a door and some fans, causing a bit of damage in the process, and show up to find there was no actual trouble and Ben just wanted to show off Alicia's art. Which is sweet, but I feel like there needs to be some ground rules for when and when not to use the flare, but hey, life pre-cell phones, you did what you had to. We got to the Marvel offices where Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are working on the latest comic when Dr. Doom walks in. Wait, what? Yeah, that's an interesting thing, is that the comics exist within the Marvel Universe, only they're basically retellings of real-life events. Doom forces them to call Reed, who is then lured into a trap, and forces Stan and Jack to notify the rest of the FF. It's not every day the creators of a story make themselves a plot point within it, but here we are. Reed wakes up in Doom's lair where he tells them how he came back after getting lost in the asteroid field in number 6. There's just something else that didn't really happen until the FF, is where they would actually acknowledge how the villain came back after being defeated last time. Doom was saved by aliens who taught him about body switching, and now Doom uses it on Reed. The rest of the team shows up, but Reed in the body of Doom can't convince them that he's really Reed. Doom in the body of Reed, I'm just going to call him Doom Reed and Reed Doom from now on. Doom Reed locks Reed Doom in a giant fishbowl that only has an hour of air. Back at the Baxter Building, Doom Reed is experimenting with shrinking animals and convinces the FF it'd be a good idea to shrink them down forever, not telling them he plans to shrink them down into nothingness. Reed Doom escapes and runs to Alicia to help him, only for the rest of the FF to be there to fight him. Alicia, as well as the others, notice there's something not quite right there. Taking him back, Doom Reed ties him up and begins the procedure to shrink them down as Johnny and Ben come up with an idea to figure out if Reed Doom is telling the truth about the body swap stuff. Johnny creates a heat mirage of lit dynamite from construction that's happening on the street below, which I guess is just a thing he can do now. Reed Doom tries to jump to save his friend while Doom Reed runs away. The jig is up and they switch back to their regular bodies. Doom holds his own against the FF before he's hit by his own shrink ray and is shrunk into nothingness. For now. This is a weird one, starting with the Stan and Jack stuff. Meta doesn't even begin to describe this, but again, we'd never really had anything quite like this in comics. It's these wild, creative, and innovative moments that give the FF, and really most of Marvel of this era, its mojo. The Freaky Friday with Reed and Doom was interesting as it showed just how different these characters are. Really a lot of this was just character stuff, which we haven't gotten all that much to do with Reed specifically, and this was a good way to explore not only Reed, but also a little more Doom. As I said, it's now when I really started to get hooked on the FF and all its wild creative splendor. Not that I dislike the first 5, but it definitely feels like they have a better handle on what the story is at this point. In tangent with, I guess, me just getting used to it. The writing and art is more consistent, and speaking of art, we have some fantastic Jack Kirby stuff. But we're just scratching the surface.